Raiv slammed into the locker as pain exploded through his shoulder. Dragons, wizards, and warriors scattered across the floor like fallen stars. He wasn't weak, not exactly, but humiliation tightened around his chest. Now listen to the real opening. The locker caught Raiv beneath the shoulder blade. Metal gave a flat bang. His cheek struck the vents punched into the door, and for a second, the whole hallway printed itself upon him through noise alone. Sneakers squeaking, locker doors clapping shut, a teacher calling for somebody to walk, 100 conversations feeding the brick throat of the school. Then his cards hit the floor. Both passages began with the same assignment. One got a lazy prompt. The other got a system built to protect specific character. Today, we are taking that chapter from prompt to prose to comic to animation and showing what improved, what broke, and what the humans still had to decide. Raiv is 11, obsessed with fantasy, and easy prey at school. His classmates can humiliate him. They cannot make him surrender to his delight in the world. After school, his imagination remakes an ordinary suburb. That night, he finds an old book about people whose supernatural gifts slowly devour them. The chapter has one job: make being marked feel terrifying and irresistible at the same time.
A bullied child discovers a mysterious book is a premise. It is also the average of several thousand forgettable openings. Specificity is what turns a premise into a person.
Knowingly, that is most of the lesson. The control paragraph is clean. It is grammatical. It sounds like fiction. That is how Slop survives. Pain exploded. It's borrowed intensity. The body gives us no specific sensation, so the verb shouts on its behalf. Dragons, wizards, and warriors is the polished 3-beat list models reach for because rhythm arrives pre-assembled. The cards fall like fallen stars. Pretty, familiar, disposable. Then comes the negative definition frame. He wasn't weak, not exactly, but instead of deciding what Raiv is, the sentence circles 2 labels and asks the contrasts to create the depth. Finally, the paragraph announces humiliation. It tells us he refuses to break. Every emotion arrives wearing a name tag. You could replace Raiv with almost any bullied protagonist to keep the paragraph. We change 3 things. First, behavior before explanation. Raiv's body has to make the decision before the narrator explains it. Second, constraints protect intention. We cut the model's favorite exits, stock metaphors, automatic 3-beat rhythms, and sentences that define a character for what he is not. Third, every medium must preserve the same emotional event. The prose, comic, and animation can look very different. They cannot quietly turn Raiv into a different child. Here's what those decisions produced. The shove lived in his body, asking for an answer. His hands supplied one by staying open. The chapter never labels him as resilient. His hands stay open. Character arrives to behavior. The prompt held because it knew what it was protecting. This chapter is specific because the writer was not inventing its emotional physics. The details come through lived experience. Being the fantasy kid who got hammered for loving the wrong things, then going home and loving them anyway. No prompt can manufacture that history. What a good system can do is stop the model from sanding that history into the average of every bully scene it's ever seen. Constraints are not a voice. They keep the machinery from taking over one. Then we adapted the chapter into 5 working comic pages. The comic gains immediacy. Cards disappear beneath shoes. Raiv occupies the amputated end of a lunch table. Storm drain opens into the dead king's living inside his imagination. Green enters a nearly colorless chapter only when the mythology does. But adaptation also damaged something. The prose says, The shove still lived in his body, asking for an answer. His hands supplied one by staying open. The comic reduces that to, he did not swing. He gathered his things. The facts survived, psychology did not. And on the book page, the generated lettering inside the image is nonsense, even though the caption gives the correct title. These pages are useful, but they are unfinished. A human adaptation pass has to decide which thought becomes composition, which line deserves caption, and which beautiful mistake gets repaired instead of defended.
If every sentence becomes a caption, you have illustrated an audiobook. If no interiority survives, you have replaced the character with his haircut. Adaptation is deciding what changes form and what must remain itself.
These are pieces of the real production workflow. In one route, Claude works through a Higgs film connector while we generate and refine frames inside the conversation. In another, Google Flow turns selected images into candidate motion clips we can compare, reject, and assemble. The platforms are options, they are not the method. Every time the work changes tools, the same rules have to travel with it. Ryu's design, the chapter's restraint, the emotional sequence, and the decision that Jade appears only when the marked mythology enters the frame. The tools produce options. Direction decides what survives. This is the 44-second motion adaptation of Chapter 1. The locker impact becomes duration. We feel the beat after the shove. The comic's still images become transitions between Ryu's ordinary life and the world he keeps building over it. And the old book gives us the first controlled intrusion of green, motion as time, which means every cut becomes interpretation. Hold on Raiv after the impact in the moment becomes humiliation. Cut to the cards and it becomes damage control. Linger on the ink and curiosity begins turning into dread. Generation created movement. Human direction decided what that movement meant. Put the three versions together. Prose gives us Raiv's private rules for surviving humiliation. The comic gives us distance and composition. You see how small he is inside the institutions around him. Motion gives us the dangerous half-seconds, the cards still sliding, the empty hallway, the green line waking beneath his hand. The goal is never identical output. Each medium uses what it does best while protecting the same child in the same emotional event. Three decisions carry the chapter across all three forms. Behavior before explanation. Constraints protected intention. Change the form. Keep the emotional event. That green line becomes a buried blade. This is where the visual language established in Chapter 1 eventually leads. A muted world, restrained movement, and Jade arriving only when the buried power awakes. The pipeline did not begin with an animation prompt. It began with a child whose hands stay open. The complete prose of Chapter 1 is free in the description. Read it, then tell us which moment from the chapter we should develop next. I'm Shane Mercer. This is Sound Human.